Wireless peripherals have always been a niche among the PC gaming community. On one hand, they're appealing to the eye with little to no wires, but many attempts often fall short with battery life, input delay, and their inconsistency. The Anne Pro tries to fix all of that, and more. The Obins Anne Pro is honestly one of the hardest reviews I've ever had to make. It's an extremely ambitious keyboard with a lot of features, but also a number of limitations. At face value, it's a very compelling choice. Now before we start, I want to disclose that I was sent this keyboard for free in exchange for a review. I've also included down below where you can buy it, and I do get to keep it afterwards. I'm no salesman though, I wasn't influenced to say anything nice, nor would I ever work with a company that wouldn't allow me to freely express my own views. This is all my own opinion. So let's start with the unboxing. The box has an extremely simplistic design. The chalk white text labels the product name and its relative size. On the other side there's a sticker indicating the switch and the colour. Whereas on the back there's a massive QR code that leads to the user guide and app download. The box opens from the front to reveal the keyboard and some of the other accessories that are found on the far right. Included is a plastic ring keycap puller, a Bluetooth dongle for wireless connection, and lastly a flat rubber micro USB cable for wired connection. The Anne Pro is very different to regular keyboards though, in that it's very compact. It doesn't have a number pad and is still considerably smaller than a 10 keyless keyboard, with only 61 keys compared to 87 found on a 10 keyless. With that in mind, you don't exactly lose any functionality either though, since the function key combination still provides you with extra buttons that are found on the 10 keyless keyboards. And as a result, the keyboard is only 288mm long by 108mm wide and lastly 38mm deep. The end result is a much more compact keyboard with great ergonomics. You end up with more space for the mouse. Simple as. As for its build quality, it's much better than what I've seen in most keyboards, even some of the more premium offerings from Razer, but again, this is from Obins. The housing is a solid plastic with zero flex. I believe this is down to both great construction, as well as a metal backplate that sits below the keycaps. Its 4 rubber feet mean that sliding is minimal, if at all, on most surfaces. Unfortunately, there's no height adjustment though. This means that you can't raise the keyboard, but personally it doesn't really bother me since I don't use that. The keycaps are PBT double shots, and these are found in more expensive models and keyboards compared to cheaper ABS keycaps. They do feel an awful lot like ABS though. This could just be down to the slight texturing on the keycaps, which feel different than the PBT keycaps found on my K95 from Corsair. These ones do let light through very well. The design is conflicting though. On one hand, it's superb in most regards, but the keycap legend is usable at best. You can buy this keyboard in white, blue, yellow and black, all of which are satin, so no reflective gloss on the casing, but regardless of what colour you go for, the back plate is always white. As such, the LEDs are much more visible and present a stronger glow than having a black backplate, which wouldn't reflect light nearly as much. The keyboard has thin, chamfered bezels, which present a nice aesthetic. It's definitely pleasing to the eye. As for the font, it leaves something to be desired. It's thin enough to be readable, and still better than many other Chinese keyboard legends, but it could be much better, and this goes for every gamer-centric legend. Now onto the switches. This is perhaps the most important part of the keyboard. I'll go over the most common types of switches first using a key switch tester, and if you plan on buying a mechanical keyboard, I highly suggest you buy one of these. Even if it's one of the more basic ones with only 4 different keys, it's still worth it since you won't end up having to return the keyboard just because you figured out that you don't like a set of switches. This one features Cherry MX clear, grey, white, linear grey, green, black, reds, blues and brown switches, which give you an idea of how they sound, feel, and the actuation force required. Since most of the common switches sold today are reds, blues and browns, these are the ones I'll be going over. The reds are linear switches which have the simplest operation, moving straight up and down without any additional tactile feedback or loud clicking noise. They sound like this. The browns are my personal favourite since they provide tactile feedback as the key actuates. This means that as you press down there is a distinct bump which lets you know that the key's been registered. And they sound pretty good too, they sound like this. Lastly of the 3, there's the blue switch, and this is more of a pronounced tactile bump, which is great when you're typing. They're also pretty loud, and here's what they sound like. As for the switches in this keyboard, my specific model does come with Gateron Brown switches. These are just as tactile as the Cherry MX Browns, although they have a tactile bump and they feel a little bit different. Now to me the Gateron feels less scratchy. I never thought I'd actually say this, but I think I prefer the Gateron to Cherry, at least for the Brown variants. Whilst Cherry Browns require 45 grams of actuation force and Gateron Browns 60, I did notice a difference. I also could notice a distinct difference in the key travel, and for sound, well, I'll let you decide. Overall, the switches feel superb. How reliable they are is something I can't attend to since I haven't used these over a longer period of time, but I know that many enthusiasts swear by these. The keyboard features a removable micro USB cable that inserts into the top left corner of the keyboard. Now, for me this is a no-brainer. If the cable breaks or you want to replace it, you can. It also means that when operating in wireless mode, the cable can be easily detached to make the desk look cleaner. In terms of key rollover, I'm able to hold down every key without a sign that the inputs are being blocked. I also haven't noticed any ghosting. As you can imagine, N-key rollover is essential in games as you often do press more than one key simultaneously, preventing a hindered, shitty experience. Independently lit and programmable RGB LEDs are also another benefit, allowing you to match the lighting with your setup, and whilst you can change lighting through the Obins app, I'll start by going over the pre-configured lighting modes. I should mention that the LEDs blinking or pulsing is a limitation of the camera I'm using. You don't actually see that in person. Anyway, there's quite a few to get through, so let's just begin. First you have static red, followed by static yellow, static green, static teal, static blue, static purple, static pink, a static orange, and a static white. Then you have a French flag, which is pretty odd, an Italian flag, and an Argentinian flag. Next you have rainbow pulses, a rainbow, random colours at key press, the same but the fade is extended significantly, then you have horizontal and vertical strips at the key press, and lastly like a random rain or coloured effect. On a side note, the keyboard has a reset button. You can reach it from the back with a paper clip. Upon depressing it, hold it down for a couple of seconds and the keyboard's been reset. It doesn't delete macros but will turn your device off and on if you're having issues. I've used this button so many times I've really lost count of it. The Anne Pro can also be used wirelessly. This is achieved through Bluetooth and works with phones, laptops with embedded Bluetooth modules, but if your device doesn't natively support it, you do get a Bluetooth module included in the box for things like desktop PCs. All you need to do is insert the Bluetooth dongle and then follow some simple steps. Quick note, if you're using the dongle, chances are you will need to install Bluetooth drivers as well if you haven't already. Otherwise the keyboard won't connect to your PC. Pretty standard. You can do this by heading over to the Intel website and under wireless networking support, simply download the Bluetooth drivers from there. If you disassemble the Bluetooth module in the keyboard itself, you'll find a Texas Instruments CC2541 2.4 GHz Bluetooth SoC. This is the chip that allows for Bluetooth connectivity and supports up to 10 meters in range from the device or dongle. This is something to consider if you're using this for couch gaming or so. Bluetooth itself has some massive problems though. Firstly, ease of use. Connecting the keyboard to my phone was really easy and straightforward. It's something you can easily do and will be excellent if you plan on writing an essay, script or whatever on your tablet in conjunction with Google Docs. Connecting to a laptop with a built-in Bluetooth module works most of the time, but the sheer number of headaches I've had trying to connect it to my PC with the included dongle is ridiculous. I'm convinced that it's down to the dongle itself, but out of 30 attempts or so, I've only managed to get it working 2 or 3 times. As you'll see later, it will pair, but it just doesn't type. There should be an annotation for a video of that on screen now or in the description. If you do get it to work on your PC though, I'd recommend ditching it and just using it in wired mode. For gaming, the input delay alone is too noticeable for me, and I'd be concerned about reliability in wireless mode in case it skips actions, which would just end up frustrating you. Now let's talk about setup. If you're doing wired, simply connect the cable to the keyboard and the other end to a USB 2.0 or greater slot and it'll work, no drivers necessary. In some instances I had to restart my PC, I'm not sure why, but it worked. As for wireless, start by charging the Anne Pro. You can do this by setting it in wired mode and leaving it connected for a little bit. Then make sure the Bluetooth dongle is connected, open settings in Windows and head to the devices tab. Tap FM+B on the Anne Pro which enables the Bluetooth function and make sure Bluetooth is enabled and then click add Bluetooth or other device, followed by Bluetooth. Tap the plus and the Anne Pro will look for potential connections. Now the PC should recognise it immediately and once selected you'll be prompted to enter a 6-digit numerical code from the keyboard. The keyboard knows this and the number keys will slowly start flashing green. Enter the code in a timely manner and press enter. After that, press escape, the keyboard should accept the pairing request and the Windows dialog should display connected. Just click done on that. Now if you want to connect additional devices such as a phone, this method is almost identical. Repeat the same method though instead of pressing plus, press 2 for your second device, press 3 for your third device, and to add a fourth device press 4. I should mention that before you do this, you should save your device into one of the Bluetooth slots so that it's recognized immediately if you switch to and from devices. You can do this by going back into Bluetooth mode, and after you've paired, press the function key followed by the device. If it's your primary device, hit FM+1. After that, hit escape to leave Bluetooth mode. The reason why I can't show any footage of this is because I couldn't get it working for me when I tried it. Every time I switched to profile, I would just have to repair the device for it to work, and even that was a bit finicky. The keyboard also features a mobile app unlike a traditional desktop one. This does have its limitations though. You can download it from the Obins website for both Android and iOS, or from the subreddit linked below, and after opening the app you're immediately greeted to 4 sections. In Light Effect you can change the colour of the LEDs, and they update in real time, once selected and applied of course. You have different tabs at the top which present all the options you're given, with FM+U cycling I showed earlier. You can make your own static combinations by simply clicking the pen icon, and this presents you with even more options. You can alter the brightness and change the backlighting of the individual keys, tap on the OSD keys, select them followed by the desired colour, and you can pretty much get the ball rolling with that. After renaming it and clicking save, your design is usable and works. Going into alignment, this is essentially remapping, and by default it's on standard, which is a standard arrangement of keys and modifier keys. You can change that though. By tapping the plus icon and naming it, you can alter the different combinations. In this example, I've changed caps lock to the function key, and left control to volume up and volume down. This is just proof of concept, but it would work better if you bound it to keys that you actually use in-game, without reaching or leaving WASD. You can also cycle between different alignments, allowing you to create profiles for different games. I'm not sure what the limit is, but I haven't had any problems with it. Heading into macros, you get basic functionality with the keys. It's pretty straightforward. Trigger key is the key you press to execute the macro, and under macro program, you select a sequence of keys to execute, and then you can move the arrangement, change the timings, and delete the keys. You can do quite a bit. From my experience though, you can only rename them by saving that specific macro and then going back in to rename it. I'm sure this is just a bug and it's frustrating though if you make a lot of macros, but probably not a deal breaker. After completing that, application applies it to the keyboard. And for some reason, I can't get macros to work. I create a macro, enable it so that the green tick icon shows, apply, and nothing. Hopefully other people are having more luck than I am, but I imagine it's very inconsistent. If you do get it to work, there is a limitation of 20 actions per key or macro. And lastly, under settings, you get access to basic information such as the device information, devices, and the rest. If you're having trouble connecting, you can try going into running mode and changing it from standard to compatible mode. For me it only caused problems, but it might work for you. Now for the summary. The keyboard uses Gateron switches. The brown switches I got feel less scratchy than my Cherry MX browns. I really prefer it, but again, this will change depending on the person. Next it has RGB backlighting and it's executed fantastically. It also has N-key rollover and it features a built-in 800 mAh lithium-ion battery, which should keep the keyboard powered for a reasonable amount of time. There's also a massive array of customization via the dedicated app, from lighting to macros to key bindings. This is a bit finicky, but it's still there. There's also a large amount of case color and switch options. It also supports Bluetooth and it's a 60% keyboard with a very minimalistic design. And as I've mentioned, you don't lose any functionality either. It also supports wired and wireless modes, and it features a detachable micro USB cable. The build quality is ridiculously good for a £60 keyboard, and it's easily moddable. Lastly, it also has PBT keycaps, even if they do feel a bit strange with the texturing. Now for limitations and drawbacks, pairing for anything other than a phone is a pain in the arse. After only working for around 2 out of 30 times, I gave up on it for my PC, so I'm convinced that it's just a Bluetooth dongle. The entire pairing process for PC is very inconsistent and difficult. The keyboard needed menu resets as I was doing it, so I wouldn't rely on Bluetooth if you're trying to connect it to a desktop. Phone works flawlessly though. Next, if you connect multiple devices, you might need to repair when switching. This isn't supposed to be an issue due to the device saving, but that's at least what I experienced. And now we get onto the app. The app, while very nice, is buggy and riddled with problems. Editing a custom lighting effect such as rainbow goes to a static one once saved. Save and delete are close to each other for lighting, and they're really easy to accidentally press, especially if you have sausage fingers. Color profile delete is broken, you have to edit your lighting profile before you can delete it. It's also poorly translated. You can get an idea of what it's asking for, using intuition of course, but it's very noticeable in reoccurring spelling errors, and use of irrelevant words such as the application key is prevalent throughout the entire app. And macros work for many but are very clunky and basic. I couldn't get it to perform an action, but even selecting the key and timings gets very cumbersome. Another limitation in my opinion is that there's no dedicated desktop software such as QE or Synapse on PC. And the reason I say this is because I feel like the app is almost a bit of a gimmick. If they made an application for a PC or for a Mac, perhaps both, it will probably work a lot better. Next, keycaps are better than most Chinese implementations, even if the legend is still ugly, and wide isn't always plug and play. Sometimes the computer needs to be restarted before the keyboard works. It's really strange though, and I've heard nobody complain about this, so I assume it's just a limited issue. It also seems to have resolved itself over time, but was present when I initially started using it. And Bluetooth mode is not worth it on PC. The increased input delay and potential for missed keystrokes when performing actions such as rapid tapping makes the wired mode far superior. And lastly, there's no battery capacity indicator. Now, this isn't too big of an issue, but for someone that's constantly traveling, a low power indicator, just such as a flashing LED or something like that, would be really nice. I'm not trying to mindlessly bash on this keyboard though, my overall impression of the keyboard is still very positive. Bluetooth was a nice attempt, but falls flat for many PCs. For laptops and tablets, it's excellent, and I can definitely imagine taking this alongside a phone or tablet to write scripts and other documents when I don't want to slug around my larger laptop. If you're a user who does a lot of remapping and programming, I would still pick a different keyboard as the app works, but it's too simple in places. But if you're just planning on gaming, this shouldn't affect most people. Most games do allow you to remap keys, and even if they don't, you still get a limited implementation of it with the Anne Pro software. You have to keep something in mind though. This is a £60 keyboard, and I've been comparing it to keyboards 2 to 3 times the price. It's a premium keyboard without the premium price. The Anne Pro holds its own very well in some ways. I think it does better.
Back from the dead.